welcome to PTV World. You are watching the special live transmission regarding the federal budget of the next fiscal year 2023 and 24. All eyes in Pakistan are set on this as the Finance Minister Senator Ishaq Dar will be presenting this budget in the National Assembly session at 4 p.m. And later on, he will be presenting this budget at the Senate at 6 p.m. The federal cabinet has already approved this particular federal budget that happens to be around to the tune of around 14 trillion rupees, and this particular budget is being termed as the PM Vision Budget 23-24. Yesterday, Finance Minister Senator Ishaq Dar unveiled the Economic Survey of Pakistan and also highlighted 5 E's on which the Pakistani government is focusing, that include exports, equity, empowerment, environment and energy, at the same time identifying 5 key areas in which the government has already focused on and is planning in the future to focus on, that include agriculture, IT, exports, revenue and public sector development program. Also, the Finance Minister also shared that going forward, the government has set the GDP growth rate target at 3.5%. Also, we saw Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif directing the concerned authorities to take initiatives and also incentivize the youth, women and farmers in particular. Let me quickly bring in our panelists. We are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Faad Waheed. He's a Vice President of Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Will be joined by other participants in the live transmission. I'll be introducing them later on as they join in. Mr. Faad, thank you very much for joining in at this special transmission.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with this particular, the GDP growth rate target that has been set at 3.5%. Taking it from the current 0.3% to 3.5%, what would it require for the government to, in terms of measures and the initiatives?
Well, we were already targeted at 3.5 last year. And this is again the reproduction of that, I'm pretty sure. But the last year has been quite problematic for Pakistan, especially when the floods came in. It destroyed about 50% of our crop, agricultural land. And the production of cotton went down by 49%, which was very staggering and which was very alarming for Pakistan, because with such a fragile economy, we really have to put up the, we have to pull up the boots now. We have to bring in all the machinery that we have. We have to bring out the best brains, and we have to make sure, we actually receive this target. We do expect 23 and 24 are going to be, a little aggressive, and the measures that governments are putting in place right now, I think it shows the commitment that Ishaq Dar is having towards the chambers and the associations and all the stakeholders. He's meeting all of them. I met him personally last week on the same subject, and he's taking all the new recommendations and all the innovations that we can provide to him. And I'm pretty sure, over the course of the last week, you've pretty much seen that, there's been consultation from all parts of business community. So I think it's really, I wouldn't say alarming, but it's ambitious. And at this point, it should be achievable. The next year will show us a little, because constraints of dollars is something, that is going to hit us. We've declined in exports in the last year, we've declined in imports, and unfortunately, we are exporting the same product that we are importing. So we import the same product, the raw material we import, and we create a product out of it and we export it. So it had a dual effect. It had a dual effect on the balance of payments as well. And we've seen this, and the manufacturing side especially is struggling to keep up with the factories. So I hope this will bring out a better change, but it is ambitious at this point.
We'll try to break it down. Let's start with the agriculture sector. As you already mentioned, we witnessed the catastrophic flooding in the summer of 2022 that had a very devastating effect on the crops. Now, what's actually required? We have already seen the government announcing a Kisan package of 2,000 billion rupees. Also giving it has also announced to give the direct subsidies to the farmers. Also, the solarization of tube wells initiative. How do you see those?
The first and foremost thing that we are missing is, we will be able to, provide these farmers with all the money and all the capacity to do this. But really and truly, we haven't really worked on transfer of technology in this area, and that's what we require. If we recall it right, Pakistan is known for their agriculture. It was known for the agriculture, but slowly and over the course of time, we have lost that vibe. And I think it's due time that this government takes these measures, that we at least, bring in the new technology. We, increase our yield per acre. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we face, because we're a water scarce country, and we're facing water shortages. And still we're utilizing about 80% of our water in just agriculture, which only constitutes about 16% of our GDP. So that is something, it has to be taken care of. Solarization on the other part, it's a good initiative, because electricity is really, we're out of electricity. We're only producing about 43%. And the rest of it, we have the capacity installed, but we're only making payments to IPPs, which is also affecting our dollar status. So those two things are actually affecting us. If we take the initiative and bring in the new technology and increase our yield per acre, we're pretty sure we'll be able to export into our region. We'll be able to make these exports better as well, because we actually own one of the best fertile lands in the entire region. So, and rice, of course, rice is something I would love to mention here, because there's only 8 regions in between this region which are best for rice growth, and 6 of them are owned by Pakistan. So why not and why can't we do this? Again, we have one of the largest salt mines. We're known for pink salt, but then again, we're not actually capitalizing on that the opportunity, I would say. We're just least concerned on those. So I think, we have to come out of the conventional part of business and exports and come into the non-conventional parts. So, and of course, the non-conventional markets that we haven't touched yet, African and Central Asian regions.
Right. I will continue the discussion more on different points. We're honored to have been joined by another participant by Dr. Sajid Amin. He is senior economist. Dr. Sajid Amin, thank you very much for taking time out for this special transmission regarding the federal budget. Now, when we talk about the government setting the GDP growth rate target at 3.5%, what key measures in the immediate term for the next fiscal year do you think the government needs to go with in order to enhance it from the current 0.3% to 3.5%?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think my first impression on this growth rate is that this is a bit over ambitious, and I think Pakistan will be achieving a growth rate of around something around 2%, 2.5%. But then your question is very pertinent, that what needs to be done. If we just take this context that we are operating in, anything which puts pressure on external sectors will not be doable in next couple of years. I mean, our traditional sectors like textile sector, large-scale manufacturing, that will not be helpful. So in this context, I think the agriculture sector and low-value adding manufacturing sector like hosiery, like other things, they will be very crucial if government can sort of generate an economic activity within these sectors, particularly agriculture sector. I think it will be moving towards to achieve this target.
So what are your recommendations how to generate activity when it comes to uplifting the agriculture sector, in particular? The number of initiatives the government has already taken, including the Kisan package of 2,000 billion rupees, also the Prime Minister directing the concerned authorities going for the solarization of tubewells.
I agree. I think in terms of a sustainable contribution of agriculture and a more productive contribution of agriculture to GDP, government needs to work on a couple of things. For example, the one is that our supply chains, our agriculture supply chains are very weak. And in any some minor issues, crisis, they completely distort, they don't work. So government need to invest in the agriculture supply chains in Pakistan. Similarly, the agriculture sector SME, those who are working, and the interlinkages factors that needs to be also provided support in this budget and going forward. And we also need to provide access to finance to particularly the small farmers, which is absolutely missing. I mean, they don't have right now any access to finance at this point of time. If you see the credit to private sector, it roughly maximum of it goes to the manufacturing and industry. And within that, even it goes to the larger firms, only 8 to 10% goes to the small investors or the small businesses. But SMEs working in agriculture and allied sectors, they don't have any access to finance, the small farmers. So I think these are a couple of points, but also the solarization.
So getting access to finance, what about the government announcing this initiative of direct subsidies to the farmers? Is it associated with that, giving them the chance of access to the finance?
Something different. Please complete.
Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think this is a subsidy, actually. This is something separate than access to finance. The farmers need investments. in value chains, in protections, in good seeds. Subsidy is just a minor part, smaller part of it. But the access to finance, the government should be sort of providing literacy, awareness, and capacity to borrow from the private sector, from the banking sector and the non-banking sector, microfinances. So this is where access to finance. And for this, I think one thing that I was expecting, and maybe it is there, but I haven't heard more on it. The banking sector and the MFIs are not ready to lend to these small farmers due to the higher risk of default, which is perceived risk of default. I think government should have set a pool where we did it in Corona, where government set a pool of 30 billion that if SMEs finance is defaulting, we will share the risk of defaulting. Similar things can be arranged for small and marginal farms in the agriculture sector.
So, Dr. Sajid, why there happens to be a perceived this particular terminology, that the risk of default that you already used when it comes to the banks loaning the money to the farmers?
Banking sector actually operates on incentives. This is a fundamental instinct that whenever there is a risk of default, any bank will sort of avoid to lend the loans. And in the small farmers, the lands are very small. The income stream is very sort of unsustainable, very volatile. For example, a bad crop can really hurt the capacity to repay those loans back. And all these metrics, when they are calculated together, they have a higher risk of default, and this really increases, number one, the chances of not getting any loan. Number two, if there is any loan, it's at a very high cost. So that is why these small farmers generally turn to the informal sector, which is very, very exploitative to these small farmers. We did a study a couple of years back, and sometime it goes to 40% of markup that these small farmer has to pay, and many of them, rather majority of them, were sort of under debt pressures, under indebted over the last 100 years. I mean, it's centuries, the family to family, father to son to grandfather, they all going through these indebtedness till they're not able to pay them back. And that is what exactly makes them a more risky for banking sector. And if government can share those risks, I think it will increase the probability for the farmers to have access to finance.
So, Dr. Sajid, what about bringing in the new research and development, or what about that particular area in order to specifically, when we talk about enhancing the per acre yield?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is what I was speaking in last program where I was sitting. There was very very good insights coming from some of the people who are the experts in the field. If you compare our productivity and yield with the India and Bangladesh, particularly with India in wheat, in sugarcane, and we are half of that actually. And one of that is that research and development, and though it is going, I mean, it's relatively better in agriculture sector than the others, but still we are lagging much behind. So government need to promote and I think one key angle for that will be the industry-university linkages. This is a common problem in Pakistan that universities and industries are working in silos, and same holds true for the agriculture research. So I think the top agriculture universities, they need to come forward, sit with the industry, sit with the farmers, representative bodies, to know their problems and then develop sort of the research and development agenda. And I think this is very critical if our private sector can take lead. Now, when I say, people call it public-private sector engagement now, but I call it private-public engagement because private sector has to take lead. Government, I think we should not expect that everything is done by the government. The private sector should be sort of incentivized to invest in this agriculture sector. One of the problems that we are facing is that we need really huge investments in upgrading our agriculture sector, in research and development, in productivity, and government does not have that fiscal space. Even if we see it right now, we are in a very tight condition. So this is where the private sector has to come forward, private sector universities, private sector industry. They have to take the lead and then develop this kind of the agenda where we can improve our yields and other supply chains and all these things.
So, Dr. Sajid, if the authorities go just right about incorporating various recommendations, the senior economists, including you, have been recommending, now what happens to the potential of this particular sector when it comes to enhancing the exports of the country and also generating revenue from it?
Yes, exactly. I think, to be very honest, I'm not expert of an agriculture sector, but this is nothing new which I am saying actually. The people have been saying it for the decades, I mean. But the point is that how we implement it, how good we implement it, that remains the question actually. And I think I would love to see this budget even from this angle, that how it supports the recommendations the experts have been giving over the last good decades actually. But if we can, I mean, if let's assume that if we can even sort of increase 50% of our yield, so you can see where will our agriculture sector growth go. And this is one of the largest sort of it can take even over the textile sector actually. I mean, I repeat that in next 2 to 3 years, I don't see any major increase in our textile sector exports. Rather, they will be decreasing because any effort to increase textile exports or the large-scale manufacturing will put pressure on our external financing accounts because we have to import the input. This is where agriculture sector, which is a less energy incentive, which is less sort of import intensive, it can come as a leading sector. And I think this is the right time. While this is a crisis, but I think this crisis is giving us an opportunity to focus, which we have neglected actually on agriculture sector. To increase that focus, we can substantially gain from our agriculture export if we can invest in sort of agriculture research and development of new seeds, increased productivity, some sort of regional, local value chain integration in agriculture sector and agriculture exports. I mean, if you see the barter trade with Russia, which people are talking about, the only sector which we have advantage on if we have to have a barter trade with Russia is actually our agriculture sector, the fruits, the nuts, the other things actually. So this has a good potential, but we need to invest in it.
Right. Dr. Sajid, how do you see the IT sector in particular when it comes to the promotion of its services and also getting the dividend in a form of exports and generating revenue from it? There are a couple of initiatives the government has already taken. There are also instructions by the Prime Minister to have a fixed tax regime regarding the IT sector.
I think this is very encouraging. If you see over the last good couple of years, 5, 7, 10 years, the IT sector has been booming in Pakistan. This is one of the sectors which is having highest the growth rate actually. And as we are moving towards, I mean, the government has an aim, this PML-N particularly, towards knowledge economy. And that is exactly which is needed for the IT economy. But I think one area that we need to focus on is that then we have to sort of go out of this mind of closing internet every second day. So whenever there is some sort of the protests, anything, the first thing that government does is closing the sort of internet and all this access to. I think this is really hammering our IT growth in Pakistan. So we need to work on incentivizing the
Dr.
IT.
Sajid, perhaps that was because of the politics of confrontation and the kind of anarchy by certain elements in this country over the last couple of months. That's why that happened to be the matter of the national security. Extraordinary measures had to be taken in order to deal with that situation.
No, I'm not talking about only last half month. It's in the larger scale. I mean, this has come as a policy, and I don't mind it. I mean, but the problem is that if we have to have a sector which is flourishing, growing, we have to find some other ways to do it. Actually, it may be the targeted closing across the country, sort of broad ban, they discourage. But that is one portion. Government need to do something as well. For example, the internet coverage, internet quality, that is really poor if you go into the other than the metro cities. That needs to be improved actually. So if we can do IT sector like agriculture sector is one of the key sort of hope that we see in Pakistan. It's really flourishing and it can create sort of employment that is missing in Pakistan, particularly when you have a low growth. So the enterprise, the ITC, the IT sector, that can improve actually if we can provide these incentives.
Right, Dr. Sajid Amin, senior economist, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for being with us in this particular special transmission regarding the federal budget. Mr. Faad, what's your understanding the kind of target that has been expressed by a finance minister yesterday regarding the IT sector in particular, taking the export to $50 billion? What's your understanding of that?
Well, I think it's due time that we give importance to the IT sector. You know, our neighbors have done this, and in the past we've seen tremendous growth in it. What do we lack, and how cannot we just come apart from this? Is that it's a very less investment, and it gives you bigger outputs, and it's the need of the hour, because exports is what Pakistan needs. And it's a very short turnaround. If there's a manufacturing process of any kind of product in Pakistan, it takes about usually 90 days to complete it. But for an IT project to be completed, it can be done in 2 hours to maximum 24 hours. And then there's the bigger projects. And we're labor intensive and we're cheaper labor. So the world looks at cheaper labor at this point, and we have the skilled ones. So I think it's best time, and it's high time that we give incentive to the IT sector. The most important thing that we missed in the past, in the couple of years that the IT is struggling, is because of the framework that wasn't present. But now there's a framework, and now they're getting good incentives on it. And the fixed regime, the fixed taxation regime, it's really encouraging, because now they'll get a little level playing field. You do understand, when you understand the problem we have is energy. The basic root problem to any kind of production, any kind of I would say any kind of junction for a business is electricity, the main energy source. We lack in those. And then again, we have the political instability problems, just like my friend mentioned here about the internet closures. It is a hindrance, but we have to find a way out of it. We have to be positive. We have to stay on the positive line, because see, we are a very fragile economy. And the only thing that can actually boost us up at this point is IT. And I recently heard, yesterday on the economic survey, there were about 10 cities that our finance minister is working on to bring them as IT hubs. And I think they should give more incentive to the buildings as well, the owners of the investors, because that's where the actual money is going to come from. If you really want to build an IT city, you're going to need developers, you're going to need better real estate. And at this point, the circulation of money is not really happening the way it was supposed to be. And in crisis time, money circulation is everything that generates taxes. So I think if they give out more incentives on generating and circulations, it'll be better. If the running taxes are going up to 39%, and now that super tax, we hope it doesn't extend, because that's discouragement of actually placing an investment into Pakistan. Because if I will be taxed on making more money, I will be discouraging this, and I'll probably be divesting it somewhere else. So why not give me incentive of actually investing into Pakistan and not investing out of Pakistan? So that would be my bigger take on IT sector, especially because IT sector, I have witnessed in the past 1 year, the growth is tremendous and the opportunities are amazing. So if we are on the radar of the world, I think we should cash it at this point.
Right. We are joined by another participant in the special transmission, Mr. Tariq Yousuf, is President, Karachi Chamber of Commerce and Industry, joining us on Skype. Mr. Tariq Yousuf, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on this special transmission. We're talking about what a probable outlook this particular federal budget is going to have, as the economic survey has been unveiled yesterday by Finance Minister. During the course of discussion, we have tried to identify those areas which can help the government to generate revenue and also enhance exports in. So IT sector happens to be that very area that has repeatedly been talked about by the government. There happens to be a huge potential regarding that. The economic survey of Pakistan states that the sector has posted a trade surplus of $1.72 billion in July to March fiscal year 2023. What's your understanding of this particular sector? How do you think it can help Pakistan in order to enhance the exports?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and good afternoon, everybody. IT is a need of the hour now. Everything is revolving around this, and the more we go into this, the more money we make for our country. That goes without saying, you see, because with the modern communication system and modern marketing system and modern approach system are all IT related. This is the trend of the time, and this is perhaps the future also. Apart from IT, I think in Pakistan, we need to look into a collaboration with mega projects also, as far as industrial sector is concerned. I mean to say that we do not have a plastic plant in this country. We do not have a petrochemical industry in this country. We do not have much idle power and other power generating units in this country. We need to have collaboration from government, between two governments, be it any government. We need to have mega projects with public partnership, public-private partnership. That is the area where we can really make large turnovers. And you see, our main imports, like we are importing a milk powder. It's a very basic commodity, and we import in very huge numbers. We import plastics, and so on and so forth. Apart from petroleum, I would go to those products which are industrial products. And in Pakistan, we really do not have any concept of catching that market. We have to focus on those areas where the major load of import can be replaced by local manufacturing. This is need of the hour.
So what key areas do you identify? Which areas do you identify regarding that?
First of all is petrochemical, the main. All the plastic products are based on that particular item. And plastic is the raw material of time. In every shape, you see plastic has replaced glass, it has replaced the steel, it has replaced paper. All the areas are governed by plastic products. And we are importing 100% plastic material. We just don't do it. This is a project which is a very big project and which invites attention of the government for the betterment of economy of our country.
So what's required in order to...
I would like to also emphasize on the engineering sector. We have virtually no mode of transformation of those know-how which our young students in different universities have achieved to make it a commercially viable project. Government has to look into this also. Industry, engineering products. Then we have IT products. There are so many areas. It is not what was the requirement 20 years ago. Today, the requirements are absolutely different. They are modern. Like, for example, I would just quote one more example, is the chip technology. We just don't do it. And you find a chip wherever you can imagine there is a chip installed over there. So there are so many advanced industrial points and products that we have to hunt for them. We have to patronize. There are small, medium-sized, and large scale, all sort of industries involved in this. We have to identify them. We have to patronize them. We have to encourage them. Only then we can replace this import bill. Otherwise, dependence on the import will lead us to nowhere.
Right, let me proceed with the discussion. Mr. Faad, what's your understanding as Mr. Tariq Yousuf has elaborated in detail in order to incentivize and also the probable areas in order to reduce the dependency on imports?
I think a couple of points he's rightly raised that, we just don't want to do it. Similarly, as you mentioned, the chip technology, the government actually has to work down a paper and, they have to really have a framework of bringing out new innovation ideas. If there's an industry that's 100% being imported, the government has to look into it and has to really provide incentive to put up an industry with that. Because see, I'm not going to invest in something, any businessman is not going to invest in something which he knows the government is not going to allow in the next couple of years. So what we really need is actually a straight policy, a 10-year policy, a 15-year policy, nothing less than 10 years. Because when we'll have a vision collectively as a nation, we'll definitely achieve something. Again, I'm going to mention a couple of other areas. There's, palm oil. So palm oil is being imported. 95% of it is being imported. Palm oil is 100%, but other oils are 5%, which make about the local production. But that's importing. You're importing all of it, and you're not, putting the step up, and you're not really educating your farmers. You're not telling people to substitute those. So we really need substitution of the imports. Similarly, we're using plastic, but now the world is shifting towards other modes. Coming back to glass. Not recycling, because you cannot recycle plastic. It has to be, it'll be on the earth forever. Me and you will pass away, but plastic is going to stay forever. And that is one of the reasons we hit these floods. The global population was actually the cause of these floods. And the global warming is also, on the rise.
So what's the alternate?
So alternate, we have to find out, we have to eliminate plastics. We have to eliminate these kinds of, non-renewable or, non-recyclable materials. We have to come to renewables. Similarly in energy, we have the best deserts in the world. We have large spaces. We can put up solar parks there. We can put up solar, floating parks in the waters. And we've really missed out on the hydel. We have to come back where there was a regime 10 years ago that, they were putting up hydel power plants on run of the rivers. But it's non-existent anymore, because again, it's the same part as my friend is mentioning, we haven't really excelled in engineering. We have to give out that vibe, we are accepting new things, we are accepting the innovation. So let's say the government is supposed to invest into IT today. They'll have G2G, programs, and when they'll have G2G programs, we'll have the B2B programs. And then, the public to public thing comes in. So all this actually relies on what direction the government gives to the businessman. If I'm going to make a new park, if I'm going to bring out some new technology, I'm going to use my money, I'm going to use the labor, I'm going to bring out new imports. But what if I start importing something and I get to know there's no policy framework to import this thing into Pakistan? So that is, now I'm back to ground zero. So the policies have to be set before, and then you have to incentivize the manufacturing part, and then only we can, excel in those.
So you already, Mr. Faad, you already mentioned renewables. Now there is a target that's been set by Finance Minister, according to which by 2025 the country will shift the energy needs to 25% on green energy. How important and crucial that is?
I think it's really important, because the one thing nobody really put focus on was creating more energy. We were being born every day. We know population was growing every day, but nobody thought of it, it's going to bring a shortfall of this in a couple of years. So that is something very important. And I think going green is the best way. If you look at Canada today, if you look at America today, they have surplus energy. They're selling it out. And we actually lacked in those because Central Asian regions were with us. We had the CASA 1000 in line, it didn't happen. We had the TAPI project, it didn't happen. So actually, energy is our need, and we need to actually implement those into green energy.
So to get that transition from the conventional sources of energy on the imported fuel in particular, is it going to be an uphill task?
It is. It is going to be a very aggressive task, because there are stakes with us. We have external stakes. We are buyers for someone, so we'll definitely have this problem of converting to green energy. But then again, we have to look at our own selves. One of the major things I always talk about is we have to come out of this lobby system in Pakistan. Pakistan needs to have their own grid. The state has to have its own policy without any hindrance of any kind of mafia or cartel. We have to actually think what Pakistan is about. As a nation, we have to come back to one standard, one thinking, and one decision. When we take this decision, that's the only part which we're missing at. If we stop this system, if we actually we make this decision today, we have to export more textiles. We'll start growing cotton. We'll start growing it. It's been decreasing over the years because we're planting more sugarcane, but then we're not exporting it. But we were exporting cotton. So
in order to enhance the exports from the textile sector, don't you think there has to be a very high input of energy when it comes to it? That was already mentioned by Dr. Sajid also. So
yes.
That's why he was saying there is a huge potential in agriculture sector as compared to that of textiles. So when we talk about textile sectors in particular, is it possible, is it very much probable, in fact, to have a transition from the conventional energy sources in the textile sector to the renewables?
Yes, there is. And I think a lot of factories in Faisalabad have actually done this. They've converted to solar. And I would say, agriculture is actually the basic commodity of textiles. So we have one of the best cotton in the world. So let's say our industrialists, our businessmen invest into land and growing cotton. So that same cotton actually also produces cotton oil. So you can actually use that as well. The byproducts are numerous. So the cotton you're going to grow, you can use that into textile and export that, and the remainder of the byproduct of the cotton is going to be CSO, the cotton seed oil. So you can use that seed and for meals of the poultry, and the same oil can be used for cooking. So there's no leftovers, So I think that's one of the best investments we can do, because that way we will be curbing our imports of cooking oil, and we'll be increasing the exports of textiles.
Right, Mr. Tariq, what's your understanding of this particular target that has been set by Finance Minister regarding the energy needs, bringing it to 25% on green energy by 2025?
In Pakistan, there is virtually no attempt towards renewable energy as on today. We have a lot of garbage in our country, in the city of Karachi. That can be a source of energy. But what we are doing we are burning it in open sky. It's the other way around. Instead of generating power from the heat of it, we are just let it go in the air. So there are so many areas which we have to focus. One thing I would like to add to
the energy
observation
from that
just
particular
now.
source, Mr. Tariq, I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. So getting that energy from the source that you've just mentioned, the garbage, don't you think a better research and development in that particular thing is concerned?
It's a municipality waste. That is a source of energy. You burn it and you make power out of it. This is a source of making energy.
Right.
What I want to just add on further, we are also not looking into the advanced development made in particular as the quality of its seeds for agriculture sector. For the same acre of land with the same quantity, maybe lesser quantity of water, the yields are maybe 5 times, 3 times. Government of Punjab is already working on that. I was in a meeting with the Minister for Industries in Punjab. He mentioned that they are trying out a cotton seed which will yield $3 billion cotton more in the next crop, only by changing the quality of seed, by the improved quality of seed. We have to look at those areas which have been developed by the advanced countries in respect of high yield per acre. And this is the same land, same people, same manpower, same water, but more yield. We have to focus on modern system of agriculture also. That is also an aspect which we have not really considered so far. There are so many things which are outdated in our country now. We have to look at modern ways of doing things. Only then we can compete with the international world. Also, like, for example, I would say, we do not have handling of our vegetables. You can buy Irani dates around the year. You cannot buy a Pakistani dates after the season. That is of 3 months. We are not able to handle that. We have to focus on the value addition of each and every product that is made in Pakistan, that is grown in Pakistan. We are not focusing that area. We make so much of bananas, but we are not able to export. It comes from Mexico to Dubai. It does not reach from Karachi to Dubai. That's the difference. There is so much of value addition in this area. There is so much of concern in this area. And similarly, all the vegetable products, during the season, they are sold at peanut price and then wasted. Sorry, I feel that way, that government has to focus on these areas, patronize everybody who is in this ball game. Only then we can grow.
Right, Mr. Tariq, what about the research and development and the responsibility of the educational institutions when it comes to bringing in innovation and new techniques and procedures and methods, specifically to enhance the per acre yield?
I tell you, the agriculture universities around the whole country are working on this very aggressively. But I think they are not able to pass on this information to the field. It needs to be propagated that what development has been made. I was in a meeting and I know that Faisalabad University is working on a citrus improvement quality, seedless citrus. There are so many things which are already developed by the universities, but that has not come into the commercial aspect. This is the job of the engineering, agriculture, and so on and so forth. All these people, when join hands together, only then we can present a developed product from the college into the market.
Right, let me take Mr. Faad's view on this. What's your understanding of this when it comes to research and development in order to enhance the per acre yield? You already mentioned in your first.
Yeah, it's very important, and I do understand, and I have been a part of it in the past couple of years. That I was a guest speaker at the Faisalabad Arid University. They have been really hard working on nutrition aspects of different things, and my per se was the same. We really need to invest into new innovation areas, and we have to create the industry linkages with the institutions, because these guys are into research and development. It really has to come to the commercial aspect now and the business aspect, and we have to actually work as a team. The government has to come down to this level and connect the businesses with the institutions, because what really does not exist is the confidence, the trust that we don't develop between the student and the businessman. Because see, the businessman is seeking profit, the student is looking for validation. So they both have to come down to some part of the world that they have to agree on one page that this is my expectation. That expectation matches is going to do everything. But in the same context, we still lack in that research and development with the technology. So we need other institutions to collaborate with our universities, international collaborations for yield especially, for agriculture especially, so we can come back to the growth that we actually expect from our farmers and the region that compete the region.
So let's suppose here is the scenario: if all the stakeholders go just right about it, the right machinery is imported, or for that matter it is locally manufactured, the transfer of the technology happens, the private partnership happens, the government comes in, it makes the private stakeholders and the universities to come to the single platform, everything goes right about it. What about the climate catastrophe? How to deal with that? If you're getting normally a good per acre yield, how to deal with the climate catastrophe as we had seen in the last year?
See, what we really don't expect in Pakistan is the climate change and the climate change catastrophes. How to handle those. Let me be very open on this. There's countries that are doing farming in sheds. So we have control sheds for farming now. It's not really necessary to have open fields to farm. But today, people are farming in sheds. So we can have that controlled environment and we can actually start producing. See how my brother mentioned here that, we're only dealing with fruits and vegetables in the seasons, and out of season we don't get anything. But if you travel the world, you'll find all the fruits every time because they're importing. And the problem with Pakistan is we haven't really, experienced, and we haven't really updated our system to preserve our agriculture, to export. See, a mango that travels from Pakistan to Canada or America is supposed to be used in the next 7 days because it'll rot. But we don't have that preservative that it can, extend the shelf life of that mango. Similarly is the case with our bananas and our the spices we have. They're best in the world, but then again, we're not really exporting those. We actually don't go into the non-traditional markets. We think, it's not going to be exported, but if you go to Canada, if you go to America, we go to Europe, you'll see that people actually love the flavor of this land. So I think we really need to cash in on the traditional part of it.
Mr. Faad Waheed, Vice President, Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry, thank you very much for taking time out for this special transmission regarding the federal budget. On the Skype, we were joined by Mr. Tariq Yousuf, President, Karachi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you very much for your thoughtful insight in this particular special transmission. Mr. Tariq Yousuf, we really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of this part of special live transmission of the federal budget for the next fiscal year of 2023 and 24. PTV World will continue to update regarding every development regarding this budget as and when it happens. From me, it's goodbye for now.